Commissioner, you want to tap yours just so they can pick you up?
Down there.
Are we good, Alan?
Yep.
All right, the Community and Economic Development Committee is called to order at 8:30. Welcome to the first meeting of the new year for this group. Call to order.
Commissioner
Roll call,
Rahal?
rather. Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Avery is absent. Commissioner Winfrey?
Here.
Commissioner Ellenberg?
Here.
We have the approval of the minutes from November 23rd.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We have no public hearings, I take it. Is that right?
That's correct.
Do we have any public comment to the committee? Yes, sir. If you would state your name for us and your community.
Good morning. I'm Neil Seward from Flint Township. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. My wife and I have watched some of these committee meetings online, but this is the first time we've attended. I do want to speak to you about ambulance services, specifically contracted services, as I mentioned last week. I just want to make sure it's the appropriate time. I'm guessing that's when you break into health and community services.
You can say that every time, at every meeting if you
Yeah,
want
and
to.
Commissioner Winfrey is chair of, is it Health and
Sure.
Human Services?
And you're going to have a committee meeting a little later this morning.
10 o'clock.
I'll talk to you specifically about that then. But I don't want to talk about this in a big meeting and get a bunch of people overly excited when they don't know the facts. So the other thing is when you moved your meetings to the evenings, it kind of bumped in and interfered with the DEI meetings, and they were postponing and rescheduling, and you had to have your meetings on Wednesday while you were making your appointments. They finally said last week, we can't wait any longer. We're going to have a DEI meeting. So when I spoke to you, my wife and I left right away. We weren't trying to be rude. We went downstairs, participated in that meeting, and we did return to your meeting, but we can't say enough. We need to work, and they communicated as well that they want to work with you, communications, and do a good job. But as a township, not a township, you can tell I'm from Flint Township, as a county, we need to work on some DEI initiatives. You know, we've been to these meetings, we hear all these people getting up and talking about racism at the road commission. We hear about the people in the hearing community. There are a lot of special needs out there. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that people are afraid to report. So we need to encourage those people that are marginalized not to be hesitant, and we want all people to feel safe and welcome in this community, regardless of race, status, and LGBT community, hearing impairments, or whatever. We're all equal, one team, one county. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment to the committee? All right, moving on. Under communications, we have two reports. The first is the 2023 action plan update and project list with commissioner districts. I've asked Derek if he'd step to the podium and just describe what this is. There's no action required.
Right.
It's a report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Derek Rauch, I'm the Director of the Planning Commission, for anybody that doesn't know. So before you, this is our action plan. This is our action plan for our community development funds for our year that comes up. Our year basically has three main programs in it. We have our community development block grant. So those are funds that come as a direct allocation to Genesee County. And these are for communities other than like the city of Flint, and we have a couple other communities like Clio and Davison. These are allocations that are based off the need in that particular township, city, or village. So, for example, Burton, we run a formula. That formula is the same formula that HUD does to allocate the funds, and then from that formula we allocate out funds to the city of Burton to do eligible projects. We do a 3-year call for projects, so that pretty much every 3 years a community will have a project. And that also gives us extra projects in case sometimes the feds give us more money. We like to have projects that we've already gotten the environmental and all the stuff done for. We get about 100 or 1.8 million a year in CDBG funds. So before you are projects that literally were chosen in previous years, because we've already chosen those projects with our communities. Our communities, when they choose projects, they're required to do public input from their communities, so they have to have hearings and see if there's any other projects. We also, in that process, have publicized this list for all 3 years and previous years, just to let people know. And so what we're doing at this point for these are bringing it back through the process for approval to submit for this year's project coming up for CDBG. Our other funding we have in there is home funds. Home funds are for providing affordable housing. We get about between $700,000 and $900,000 a year, it depends on our allocation. That one we do a call for projects, so every year we do a call for projects. Any of our nonprofits that are interested will put in projects. We determine eligibility. From there, we actually score them, and then that's how you get the list that's in that projects here. Here, I think there's like 3 projects. We have Habitat, we have some rental assistance, and some down payment assistance for the projects that are in here. Keep in mind, a lot of these home projects are challenging to put the money together. So we have other projects like with Community First that they're trying to finish some money for. So I wouldn't be shocked throughout the year as they progress with additional funds, we might get some additional adds. So those are our home funds. And then our last one is our emergency services grant. Same thing, we get about maybe $1 million or $1 million. We get about 150 to 200,000, depends on the year. Those typically go to people that provide emergency shelter type activities, rental assistance, those type of things. The good thing on that one is it's not a lot of money, but the benefits are pretty impressive. So we serve about 1,000 to 1,100 people a year on that. But if you're one of those people that were in that situation where that funds were able to help you out, that's pretty impactful. So a super small program, but really big impacts. That project, we do a call for projects. We score those projects, and then all those projects actually run through our continuum of care. Because one of the things when you're dealing with homeless prevention, you want to make sure there's no duplication, and more importantly, everybody's talking, right? Because it's not just one thing that can help with homeless. So those are the projects that we have in the list. I know we identified, you'll see commissioner districts on the CDBG ones. We're gonna do a public comment period, so that's why we're just giving everybody a heads up. So if you have somebody in your district ask a question or anything like that, you're like, oh yes, I know we're doing that public call for projects. Once we get that done, we'll bring it back to the board with any of the comments we receive, and then eventually, probably in April-ish, hopefully, because we still, when I was giving you ideas of dollar amounts, I give you ranges, we still haven't got our actual allocation from the feds yet. So it can come up or down, usually 100 or 200,000 depending. So that's our action plan with those are basically our main program.
Any questions, Commissioner Ellenberg?
Yeah, you said that there's a formula. I know like the city of Burton got 21,000 and then approximately, and then Mount Morris got like 145. So like, is there a max on what the project can be for that? Or do they kind of alternate them around and somebody gets a big one, someone gets
Yeah, so we do a 3-year call for projects. So if you want to know how much total your community gets over 3 years, so what we will have in some cases, we might have smaller projects that we kind of fill in the gaps with, right? So depending on your community, you might see that Burton might have had a project last year, depending. So some of those projects, usually like senior center operations, those types of things, you'll see those smaller type projects every year. But yeah, as far as the formula, there's not necessarily a max. It's really just driven by how much money you get.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, I was looking at the eligibility for homelessness, and I noticed a lot of different things, but I didn't notice, well, maybe it's not eligibility, I think it was, services to those homeless, prerequisites, if you will, before they get in. But is an assessment of mental health done? I didn't notice that was in there.
So I don't think that's a requirement. of
Okay.
receiving the services, but that kind of speaks to what I talked about, the continuum of care, right?
Okay, that's
So-
what I was wondering about, the intersection of that.
Right, so
Okay.
all those people that come into the system in Genesee County, actually, there's a one computer system for them. So that different agencies can actually keep track of what's going on.
Okay,
And the goal of that is, so when they come in, that they can, so maybe you come in for homeless prevention or rental assistance, right?
Mhm.
The goal is to be able to be better, to be able to put them, like your agency may not be the right agency for that, be able to push them with those other agencies.
so they do talk to one another?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Any other questions from commissioners? Derek, when does the comment period start and when does it end officially?
So for the action plan, it starts February 20th and it ends March 20th.
Okay.
So it's about 30 days.
Okay, and then we'll see the comments after the
Yep.
the deadline.
Yep, so whatever comments we get back, we will bring those back so that when commissioners get an opportunity to, when we request approval, you'll see any of the comments.
All right, and did you already cover item 2 or?
No, let
Okay,
me jump
I know
to
you
that.
mentioned home, but in a different context, I guess.
So there's been a lot of additional funds that have come in. And one of the additional funds that we received was our home ARP allocation, so kind of ARPA type allocation. And so we got about $3 million. And so in order for us to access that $3 million, we have to provide a plan on how we're gonna spend the money. So staff has been working really hard. I have Anthony here from our office wage. And Sheila Taylor's the division administrator, to put that plan together. And so they went out and surveyed all the different agencies out there to see what the needs are. And in a nutshell, it comes back, we're short about 7,000 affordable housing units in Genesee County, which isn't a shock, right? And more importantly, safe and quality affordable housing units too, right? And I know there was talk, I was at a meeting the other day talking about rents and how much rents cost. So any of the things that we do are actually for low to moderate income people. And so the goal of this is, same thing, we're gonna go to a public comment. This public comment is a shorter one, February 16th to the 24th. And so what we're proposing based off all of the information that we got is of that $3 million to allocate that to new affordable housing, because that's kind of been one of the big challenges. There's just not a lot of new affordable housing out there. Our hope with this is with $3 million to attract some larger projects that are more money. So our goal is not to necessarily 100% fund a project, but we can partner with a nonprofit or developer to build a bigger project to get a little bit bigger impact is our goal. So ours is kind of more like, because $3 million doesn't go as far as you would think. So once we submit the plan, they'll give us an approval back, and then we have 5 years to spend the money. And there's not a lot of capacity for affordable housing developers in Genesee County, so it may take a bit to kind of get the right people involved in it.
Commissioner Brown, then Commissioner Kuzma.
I wondered about any partnerships with banks to help leverage that $3 million. Sometimes, I remember when I worked for a bank, that was one of the grants that we wrote to like the Federal Home Loan Bank, and they helped fund low-income housing programs like this. Has that discussion been going on?
So it's been going on as staff,
Okay.
and then once we actually get approval to go out and actually talk to people, I think those are the partnerships that are going to make good projects.
And I also, just a second quick question, years ago when I worked in this space, there were agencies like the Flint Neighborhood Improvement Preservation, Salem Housing. Are we working with them to leverage any of that work, or do those agencies even exist anymore?
Yeah. So I've been here about 27 years, and I worked with a bunch of those nonprofits. I would say across the board, almost every one of those is gone.
Because that would have been a great way to braid those funds.
Yeah. So we're literally, and that's when I talked about capacity.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few people. So how do we start building that infrastructure and developers working with them to actually start bringing that capacity back? Because this $3 million is just outside the city of Flint for eligibility. City of Flint has money as well, and they're in the same issues we are, right? There's just not, there's money available to do projects, but there's not necessarily developers and nonprofits that are able to capitalize.
Commissioner Kuzo?
This is completely 100% separate from the community block grant system.
Yep. Okay.
So if a community is not in the community block grant system, they are still, and you know what I'm talking about, they're still eligible for this program.
No.
They're not?
No. So.
So there is a connection.
Yeah, so we have, in Genesee County, we have an ability for communities to opt into the community development program. And they sign up about every 3 years or so. And if they choose to not sign up with our program, which is, HUD and all the formulas, then they can then apply on their own behalf to go to the state for funding, because there's funding that comes to the state for those type of things. And so the reason that they're not eligible is because once they opt out of our program.
What if they didn't opt out?
Oh, they'd be absolutely eligible.
Huh?
There would be absolutely eligible.
But they're not in it presently.
Correct. So the good thing with this project and some of the other
So
ones.
I'm just trying to get a clarification if they're eligible for this program or not, if they're not in it, because basically they didn't do the proper paperwork.
Correct. So
they'd still be eligible for this.
No.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
So they are currently, we have a small handful of communities that are currently not eligible for funding from us for community development. And I guess what my point is, we will have an opportunity for them to re-up if there is a project out in that area before we spend any of this money. And so one of our challenges with, let's say, Clio or Davison is to sit down with them and say, by you opting out of this is the amount of money that is not in the community. And so here's an opportunity for you, if you opt in, not only do you get funding directly to be able to help your community, because in most cases those communities are not applying for state funds. So what happens is when they opt out of our program, any of the allocations for them goes to the state. So that's why with this program and any of those other ones, our funding goes down because they're not in the program. So that's why if they opt out, that funding goes to the state. And if they don't apply, which most of them don't.
Which the city of Clio, I know, does do that.
Yeah.
But I'm referring mostly to a township in my district.
Right. Yes, I know which township that is.
I know, so, I just don't want to
And they have
publicly
need.
announce it.
And they have projects in need in that township that we would love to fund.
Okay.
Other questions from commissioners? How do we arrive at the 7,000 unit figure? I heard that yesterday, that we're short 7,000 or so units of
Right.
affordable quality housing, safe. Do we derive that internally with our planning folks, or does it come from somewhere else?
And so,
So, we did a.
Can you come up to the mic so we can pick it up on the recording?
So we did a gap analysis. We looked at some info from the Census Bureau just to kind of see how many affordable housing units were available to folks from 0 to 30% AMI, 0 to 50. And based on that data, we were able to see that we were lacking 7,000. So because of that, we made that recommendation to kind of push our funding towards more affordable housing units.
Last thing, Derek, yesterday you introduced, or I'm talking about the Planning Commission meeting, your annual report. So is that somewhere where these commissioners can look it up and find it, or is it not published yet?
So as soon as we get a couple pictures from our new commissioners on the county board, that'll be published. So I would assume probably in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I have a lovely picture of Commissioner Brown getting sworn in. Can we use that one?
Please don't use that one.
All right, so it's yet to be published.
Yep, we're just.
But
waiting
it's on its way, and it's essentially
Yep.
your year report with accumulation of all sorts of things.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Under new business, we have approval of a modification to the Cedarwood Apartments Home Investment Partnership Loan.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Do we have discussion? All those in favor, please say, Commissioner
Sorry,
Kuzno.
I'm sorry, where is this?
Under new business, item
No,
one.
where's it located?
I know,
I'm
where is it
sorry.
located?
I'm sorry, Derek.
It's over in Flushing.
Okay, I know, that's what I thought, thank you.
District
Cedarwood
8.
Drive.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 2, under new business, approval of a modification of an agreement between It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Do we have any other business today?
No.
We are adjourned at 8:51.
Ditto.
Can you get the microphone down there, please?
Thank you. Avery, Wayhill, Brown, and Kuzma.
Are we supposed to be on?
It's before 9 o'clock. Commissioner, it's 9 o'clock.
It's now 9 o'clock. We call the Finance Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kuzma?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Avery? Commissioner Wayhill?
Here.
Commissioner Ellenberg?
Here.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the minutes from January 25th.
I'll move it.
Support.
Any discussion, comments? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now's the time for public comment to the committee. Anybody wishing to speak to the committee, please step up to the podium.
Good morning.
Morning.
Steve Dawes, proud resident of Genesee County, Mundy Township. My commissioner, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Just wanted to stop by, you know, I'm the first one to be here to kind of bust your chops. Are you doing the right thing? But this morning, I'm not here for that. I'm here this morning to thank you. My phone rang off the hook yesterday as proud retirees of this community got their letters that they were holding on to their Blue Cross. I want to thank you for that. You found a way to fix it. Keep in mind, these are people that built this community, the people that worked in this community, that made a decision in their life to stay in this community for a promise, for a negotiated contract that they would have post-retiree health care, and for a thank you for what they did for this community. And I want to thank you for finding a way to do it. I know that doesn't fix the entire problem, but that's a step in the right direction. Again, I thank you all for that. I don't want to take up no more of your time. You got a lot of business to do here. And I thank you very much, again, especially for those who are paying attention as public speakers. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawes. Any other people? Anyone else for public comment? Going twice? Going 3 times? It's now closed. There isn't any communications. Nothing on the old business, new business. Physical services, 1. Approval of the repayment of a disallowed cost to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The total repayment cost is $180,295. Before we can have discussion, I need a motion and second.
Move it for question.
Second for question.
Question. Well, maybe, yeah, ask her.
Yeah, could you come up to the podium?
This is actually through fiscal services. There's 2 different
Oh,
departments, so
okay.
you may, depending on your question, you may need our CFO as well.
Okay. Yeah, I know there was an item that was basically wasn't charged correctly. Is this part of that, Crystal?
Yeah, so there's 2 pieces to this, as Josh mentioned. Part of it is for health department and part of it is for G-Card. So these both were previously when accounting was separate in those separate departments. The health department item was services that were provided after the grant period ended, and the accounting person posted it back to the grant period. So you can't cover costs after a grant period ends with grant funds after the grant is over. So that was 85,000 of it.
These were costs related to the mass vaccine clinic's security.
Okay.
Yes. And
So-
then the G-Card piece was for some journal entries that were recorded because there was budget available, but there was no supporting documentation to give the auditors or the granting agency to support that that was a valid charge.
Okay, so this funding, does that come out of their budget or comes out of general fund?
So health department gets a general fund appropriation that will be used to cover their piece. The G-Card portion has been posted to their funds. They are in a deficit, so that deficit elimination plan will be coming forward, which will require a transfer from general fund at that time.
And what will be the remaining for that the
For
debt
this particular item,
for G-Card?
the G-Card item on here is almost 95,000.
Okay.
The total deficit will be about 900,000.
Okay, now, they were in, like, wasn't it before we went transferred over to fiscal services all over to here? Wasn't there $1 million at one time that had kind of the same situation?
For
Was it-
repayment?
For G-Card, for
Are you
grant,
talking about deficit?
the deficit, yeah.
Yeah, they've been in a deficit elimination plan for 5 years, so we're reaching the end of that 5 years would be 2023.
Okay.
So that's why that transfer will be needed in this fiscal year, so that will be coming on one of the next.
So do you
agendas.
feel that, like, by the finances coming over to you in one, place, that it should solve this problem?
So there will be 2 pieces of that. So one of them will be the finance piece, which is, journal entries like this, unsupported would, we would not be doing that in our department. We do have levels of review to make sure that there's support for that. But the other piece is the program piece. So you have people out running programs that have to be familiar with what that grant can be spent on. So if they go out and make decisions on what they think is allowed, and then those invoices come in for services that have already been rendered or goods that we've already received, we have to pay that vendor regardless if it's allowable or not. So by the time we get the invoice, it's too late if that program person made a bad decision. So that's why we, say get those people trained to make sure you understand your grants. And a lot of them we've had for many years, so that helps.
Okay.
But there is some of that on the program side, separate from the finance side.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
I just wondered, what it is, for my own knowledge, because I'm not really, our meeting is this afternoon.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just gonna ask this question now. Is there an infrastructure in the county system right now to, take a look at those checks and balances when it comes to these kinds of grants? Or is this just, just a problem with G-Card only?
So you're new here. So we did have, this first item for health was part of our initial discussion. So previously, a lot of the accounting function was spread throughout the county. And so the health department person and I had, I won't say an argument, but a disagreement on whether that should be posted the way it was or not. It was commented that she had approval from the state when I contacted that person during the audit time, she did not have that approval. So that started the discussion, and I think we need to bring those finance people into my department, because if I'm trying to be accountable and trying to help people across the county, but I'm not a direct supervisor of someone and we have a disagreement, it's hard for me to make them do what I need them to do. So that started the transition into our department. From there, we went and looked at the G-card piece, and so the finance director there was struggling as well. And so it's hard to go to a supervisor who doesn't have a finance background, you know, and try to talk through a lot of, I mean, they have 100 of our 240 funds. So it was a lot of the finance piece that was in a separate department. So that was the next route. We went and said, okay, we're having issues with some of this. That came up in the last audit for 2021, was that finding for the 95,000. So we worked with the board, we worked with G-Card and their staff and said, you know, I think it really makes sense for us to take that finance piece as well. We still work with you on everything that you're doing. You'll still have a say in what your programs are, you know, running your department, but help us help you, kind of. So now we're working together for the finance piece to be intertwined with the program piece, so that they're focusing on just the program on the front line, making those decisions, and not having to focus on the finance piece and leaving that to our expertise. So that's been working really well. I think going forward we should be in a much better place. I think the departments are feeling that, so hopefully this won't be an issue moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, I didn't know.
I wanna make sure I understand that, is it the 85,000 that was related to the security?
Yes.
And so the issue there was we had a grant that should have covered it, would have covered it,
No, it expired on February 1st.
the grant
And
did.
then we did not get the other grant. There was a period of time when the grant we had initially expired February 1st, which of course that was, you know, the time of the mass vaccine clinics. And then we did not get funding again from the state for like 2 months.
And we incurred the expense during that gap.
So the expense was from, I believe, March through June, and was recorded back to February before the grant would have expired, but those services weren't provided until after the grant
Right,
was
and under accounting rules, you have to apply it to when you spent the money.
correct.
You have to have the,
And grant rules as well. They say you have to spend my grant funds within they call it a performance period. And so you have to spend it on allowable costs within that timeframe they give you.
so with the individual that did that, how do you hold that person accountable?
That person is not here anymore,
I see.
so.
As a
So it
result
was
of,
addressed.
as a result of this issue or this and other things?
Part of the consolidation into our department was we posted positions within my department, eliminated those at that department, and then we did interviews to determine who was the best candidate for those roles.
So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, that historically we've had a very diffuse or organic or decentralized system of grant compliance with the different units trying to keep up with it and doing their own thing, or?
If I could address it more as an objective observer of the
Sure.
situation, that it wasn't just grant, at least for the health department. It was, I'm not sure exactly where, but Crystal is like extremely knowledgeable both on county government finances, but also public accounting. And my trust goes here. And that was initially one of the reasons why I contacted, actually, Mr. Freeman, to say, we need to do something about this. And this was the solution, so.
Yeah, so I recognize this. I work at Mott College, very large organization, lots of grants, lots of people trying to implement those grants that may not have a financial background or an understanding of accounting rules. And so what we've tried to do, and it sounds like you're trying to do this, is centralize that expertise, but helping people spend the money, make sure they're on track, and comply with federal law and also the regulations of the funder. Is that fair to say what you're trying to?
Yeah, so some of that does apply on the program side, so they are required to look at their, they have program directors and that are familiar with the grant requirements, but they don't understand how the financial side works. And so really is that partnership of, yes, you understand the compliance, but when you come to me and want to do something, we need to talk through the timing, how things get reported. And so it is really just a partnership of 2 people being sufficient on both sides of that metric. But yes, we do work very closely with the program people, helping them establish the budgets based on what they want to spend it on, monitoring where they're at, budget to actual, and then, supporting them if they have any questions, if they call us.
Yeah, it's not an easy job. And there's a lot of well-intentioned people who run afoul of things they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so it sounds like you're developing a process and a system that will improve that.
Yes.
So.
And also there's so many better checks and balances. You have to make sure that the program's being matched by the people who are getting the grants, and then you want to make sure the accounting is being done correctly, which is Crystal's expertise.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Crystal, I didn't, we're working under a budget that I wasn't part of putting together last year. So I'm a little unclear on a couple of things. This money is coming from where? You said the general fund, but in particular, where at the general fund?
Yeah, so Health Department actually gets a general fund appropriation every year. They still have some of that left. They can pay for that without additional general fund dollars. G-Card currently has a deficit. They've been under that deficit elimination plan. This 2023 will be the end of their 5-year plan. So the state will require us to do a transfer during this current fiscal year to show that we're fixing that. So that will be coming forward to the board. It's probably going to be about $900,000 for the total deficit that needs to be eliminated. So you'll see that coming through, but that's not currently in this fiscal year's budget.
So it'll be in next year's.
It'll be coming through to amend 2023. Added.
Okay, and then where will that money come from?
That will come out of general fund.
Will it be coming out of the fund balance, or
Yes.
just, so it wasn't budgeted for is what I'm leading up to? Okay, so that'd be a drain of how much on the fund balance? 900,000? Almost $1 million on the
Yes.
fund balance. Okay, thank you. There's been a motion, any other discussion, I'm sorry. There's been a motion and a support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2, approval of a request to adopt a proposed retirement ordinance amendment. Physical services, is there a second?
Support.
Okay, Crystal, could you explain this? I'm gonna ask everybody up because a lot of people don't know.
So we have a multi-employer pension plan. It includes us as the county, water and waste, the district library, GHS, road commission, city of Mount Morris. So we have one ordinance that covers all of those employers. So if they have any changes that affect our ordinance, we have to send those through for board approval. So the ones that are on the agenda today are just for roads and water and waste. Those are outlined there. You are required to adopt it, but it doesn't affect any contributions that the county itself will be making, only roads and water and waste.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3, stay right there, Crystal. Forwarding to receive and file a copy of the paid county bills for the weeks ending. Is there support? I'll support it. Does anybody have any questions about that?
May I, through you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Shoemaker, I wanted to ask you, I think this is the one where you separated it from our main agenda last week. I just want to get a better understanding of why you're choosing to do that.
Well, I'll be glad to go on about that, but I don't think these people want to sit for about 2 hours. But to start with, one, as we saw a health department issue with the vaccine clinics, these clinics were decided unfairly. We paid these people tens of thousands of dollars to certain churches that I think received favoritism throughout this process. There was no vetting process of who these churches were. There was no proof that there ever was for me. And there's so many things if you want me to go down the line of. The fact is, our gas costs have increased from $200,000 a couple years ago to $800,000. This board has chosen to do nothing to change that. We have an opportunity to change that, save $1.5 million by switching to a cheaper, fuel-efficient vehicle. Okay, there's so many things I can continue on. If you wanna have a conversation, I would love to. Mine is a symbolic vote to say, guess what? I hear you to my residents, I hear you to the employees, because I've had so many emails and calls from employees who say, we hear what you're saying, Mr. Shoemaker, we're there with you. We know there's waste, we see it every day, and I will continue to go down that path. I understand there's business needs to be done, that's why I will vote on the others, but this is simply a symbolic thing. And maybe someday we'll sit down and when Commissioner Kuzno was here before, he's been very budget conscious, he's been a fighter to try to get these costs under control. And I hope by next year when I look at the budget, I can go, yep, this board has taken action, I'll be proud to make that vote, that we're gonna move forward with it. But as of right now, you know, this budget that was put out there, there's nothing to address our long-term legacy costs that are gonna haunt this county for decades and decades to come. It's gonna be not just us, but our children and their grandchildren when they have diminished services. And eventually it's gonna come down to the point where we have to lay off officers. Okay, yeah, we were frustrated because guess what? They want a certain vehicle because it fits what we've always done. But the real pain will be, like I said at the time, is $1.5 million can keep a lot of officers on the street. You keep another person in the prosecutor's office, and we haven't done those things to correct that. We just keep on spending. And I hope all of you will take the time to meet with Crystal, because since I have been here, she's a great asset to tell you where money is being spent, wasted, and so on and so forth. But that's where, in a quick nutshell.
Okay, I appreciate
why I
that.
do that.
Part of me was wondering whether there were specific things within this particular list of bills or the previous list of bills, or if it's more philosophical, as you say, just making a point, I guess, about many things in terms of spending.
If there are things in the bill, you'll notice I will vote no throughout the rest of the agenda on those items.
Yeah, okay.
From there, the ones that I would find, and we have to approve them.
Thank you, I appreciate your sharing that.
No, thank you for asking.
Is there any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Wise move, Crystal. Sat down. Friend of the court, approval of a request to create, post, and fill 2 attorney referee positions at Genesee County's Friend of the Court.
Move it.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Who's here from the Friend of the Court?
Jen's here.
Hello,
Okay.
I'm Jennifer Kyler, I'm the Deputy Director. Unfortunately, Mr. McDowell is serving the community in jury duty today, so he's not able to make it.
Okay, could you explain this, please?
Certainly. So the Friend of the Court has recently adopted the bulk of the domestic work that is coming from the Circuit Court that has been brought over and assigned to the Friend of the Court referees. The positions that we are asking to fill, one is the position that's vacated by Judge Heath, who was promoted from a referee position and appointed as a judge. The other would be a new position in order to handle the volume of work that is going to be coming over. Essentially, the Friend of the Court will be hearing all pro per without attorney domestic cases that are filed, all child support investigations, custody parenting time hearings, and judgments of divorce that are filed by individuals without attorneys. Essentially, any matters that the judges will not hear on their domestic caseload would go to the Friend of the Court referees. The volume that we're looking at for that is about over 4,300 motions that are being filed regarding custody, parenting time, child support, and then in corresponding to that, many of these matters are set for an evidentiary hearing that then is a longer, it could be 1 to more hours, up to a day sometimes, that they need to hear these, hear witnesses, take testimony, receive evidence, to be able to, come to the best decision for that family. So while we are adding a position, because the Friend of the Court receives federal funding through our 4D program, this will actually result in a cost savings to the county because both of these positions, there was one position that had no federal funding. Now we would have 2 positions that would receive the federal funding. And in addition, we were able to eliminate the Circuit Court referee secretary position because now all of those referees will be serviced by the Friend of the Court referee secretaries.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Crystal. Could you please stand back up? And I assume this has all gone through you?
Yes.
And this will not put a drain on our budget?
Correct. I did work with Kevin Fialco, who is the accountant over at FOC. We worked through the numbers and yes, I agreed with his cost savings.
Okay. And that cost savings was approximately?
$25,000.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. C, G card, approval of a request to amend the 22-23 appropriations resolution allowing for the adjustment and roll over the Head Start budgets.
Move it.
No support for discussion. Who's here from G card? Could you explain this, please?
Certainly, we have 6 funding streams that the budget years don't align with the county budget years. So we have to do estimated budgets for the first several months of those grants, and then we need it to be rolled over, so that it is in alignment with everyone's funding streams.
And Crystal, I'm sorry. But
Yeah, so the Head Start.
that doesn't put any it's not a problem with the deficit spending that we have over there.
No, so the Head Start programs follow the school year and not the county's fiscal year. So they use a portion of it before our fiscal year ends, and then they have to take, okay, how much did we spend last fiscal year, what's left in the budget for the grant? And then they establish that again when we start our new fiscal year, so they can spend the remainder of that grant. So no, it has nothing to do with, they're fully operating without Head Start is fully operating without a deficit.
All right, is there any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Health Department, approval of a request to create, post, and fill one public health nurse position at Genesee County's Health Department. This position requires no general fund contribution.
Move it.
Support.
Okay, could we have an explanation, please? Thank you, Doctor.
My pleasure. So this is a position that we need to meet our state guidelines of 5, at least 5.1 for children's special health care services. So our nurses are currently doing about 2,000, handling a caseload of 2,000 each. It's very large, and also, so to meet the state requirement, we still need to hire a person. But we also had the additional new group come under children's social health care with adult patients who have sickle cell. So that's a whole nother pool of people who are going to be served by our 3 nurses, 3.5 nurses. Well, we have a health secretary and then 3 nurses right now. So we want to add another nurse.
Is there any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. Was this figured in? Did we leave space in the new building? Is this a permanent position?
We did.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't need to change anything with the architect next week.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Park and Recreation, approval of a request by Genesee County's Park and Recreation Committee to apply for a grant in the amount of $300,000 from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund to repair and renovate the historic pedestrian bridge within the Richfield County Park.
Move it.
Support.
Okay, any comments or questions? I'm gonna let you off easy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Stay there though. Approval of a request by Genesee County's Park and Recreation Commission to apply for a grant in the amount of $300,000 from the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund for the purpose of developing a handicap accessible launch at the Flint River.
Move it.
Support.
I'm sorry, but could you explain where is this going to be at in the park?
Okay, so this is going to be adjacent to the new yet to be named State Park downtown, where the Serval building currently is. That's where the Watershed Coalition is moving in, and it will be on the back side of that property. One of the things that we're trying to do throughout the park system is accessibility. Last year we put in a great ADA accessible launch at Bluegill Boat Launch, and this is part of the process of us making the Flint River more accessible to those who have accessibility needs.
Go ahead.
Does the grant require matching funds?
It's a 26% match fund. standard for all Michigan Natural Resource Trust funds. With this, there's a Fish and Wildlife grant that is going towards it, and then the Watershed Coalition is raising the rest of the money. So there won't be millage money used towards this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what's the total cost?
Right now, it still needs to be designed, but we're looking at probably around 450.
So 300, if we receive this, that'd be part of it. US Fish and Wildlife?
Yes.
And then the Watershed Coalition would make up the difference? How many launches are there in the county park system, and how many are accessible?
Right now, we only have one that is accessible to the water, and that's the one in Bluegill that we put in last year.
And how many, do you know how many total, or approximately how many?
Off the top of my head, I'll say we probably have about 12 to 14.
Okay, so about a dozen, a little more than a dozen, and one of them is accessible right now, okay. All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what's your name?
Patrick Linehan.
And what do you do?
I am the deputy director.
Oh, okay, nice to meet you, Patrick. My question has to do with maintenance. Do we factor in maintenance of this handicap accessible ramp over the long term? And so that's built into the.
Yeah, and when we look at like wood structures and that, we do have carpenters that go around and do this sort of work in house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. F, Sheriff, approval of a proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution allocating $53,292.57 from the general fund balance to the overtime budget of the Genesee County Office of the Sheriff. I'm looking for a motion and support.
I'll move it.
Support.
Okay, I saw the under sheriff up here earlier. I assume that's why you're here.
Good morning.
But could you explain this, please?
Yes, sir. This has been an ongoing issue for our office, is staffing. It's not just our office here in Genesee County. All the police agencies have trouble staffing, and the entire nation is having problem staffing. We have made, and those are the issues, we've made some changes in that. For our new commissioners, we have lowered the standards for anybody applying. I used to have 100 applications for one job. Now I get 1 or 2 people trickle in a week. We keep it open constantly. We are constantly trying to fill it. I've also taken it, if we do get a lot of applications, you have to do background checks on them. So I've spread it out the entire office to the sergeants, the lieutenants, to make sure we get these processed as fast as we can. And sometimes, since we've lowered the standards, we get some new deputies, corrections deputies in, and they get in there and they realize, well, this isn't for them after we've invested all that time. So we've also changed that process to where we have them go in and work a few days just to see if they actually can do this job, because it is a very difficult job. Right now we are 10 people down, and when you're that many people down, we still have mandated training. In December we had to send several people to Corrections Academy. So not only are we down 10, now we have to send 10 people, 7 to 10 people, our deputies, to the Corrections Academy. I'm ordering over entire shifts, so it's like I have to come in and let you know what's going on, and I have to let them know what's going on when you order an entire shift over. Our courts, we're also short in the courts. That's why you're sending so many deputies to. We've got 8 deputies right now going to the police academy. We sent 10 last time, so on top of the 7, we were 10 short because of the police academy, 7 short because of the corrections academy, and we're 10 short because of staffing levels. So it's going to generate, unfortunately, it's going to generate overtime because we're mandated to staff those positions. The courts, since COVID's over now, we're starting to really see it start to move again, which is a good thing. We actually changed our hours. They were on 10-hour shifts. we had to change it to 8-hour shifts to eliminate that overtime. So we're finding solutions, but the staffing is very difficult, unfortunately, we're trying, we're bringing in as many as we can. But
Anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Schumacher.
This might not be for the undersheriff, this might be more towards Josh, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. Do you remember what the original overtime budget was sent at for the sheriff's department? Is that at?
I do, Crystal, do you remember that number off the top of your head?
I don't.
400,000?
This is actually a combination of two things, so part of the budget to adopt for this current fiscal year, we had something in the original memo that was not going to allow you to move people once they were budgeted in a specific spot. So we have some people that are higher with fringes because they have defined benefit pension, they may be eligible for retiree health care. So some of those were charged to either a grant or a contract, so it wasn't going into the general fund budget. Part of that discussion, because the sheriff wanted the flexibility to move people, was to look at this periodically on a monthly basis to see how it was projecting to affect the general fund budget at the end of the year. That way they could come to ask for more money if it was needed. So after the fiscal year started, there was a couple DB people, the higher fringe people, that got moved into general fund positions. So the OT is one piece of it, but that shift of personnel is also what's causing this overage, or projected overage. We're not over yet, but we took those updated numbers for where we were at the end of the quarter and then figured out where we would be at the end of the year if we didn't do something at this point.
Okay, so that answers my next question. This is not part of what we budgeted for overtime.
Correct, this would be increasing it, regular wage and fringes lines as well as the OT to adjust for what the new projected number is.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Yes, okay.
You may,
Go ahead, I didn't see you.
thank you. You may or may not be able to answer this, but just based on your gut, to what extent is this overtime, do you think is due to the COVID? Is there any relationship, do you think?
I don't believe so now, ma'am, no.
Okay, so historically, can you give me information about overtime, say over the last 10 years?
I have a spreadsheet, I could bring that this afternoon if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Right, what Crystal said and what really triggered this is, in previous years, the sheriff's office, and it's not just the sheriff's office, they would just move people to different assignments within the department. Well, at the beginning of the year, you're counting on that person, like Crystal said, to be in that grant. They move it to a general fund position, they're appropriating money without authority from the board. So what we tried to do was say, be a little more proactive and not coming to you at the end of the year saying, well, they're over budget by, X amount of dollars, so that you can review those changes in a more timely manner. So we're trying to do it at the end of every quarter so you can see what direction we're going, and that, to see that direction should help you, should help drive decision making by this board in terms of spending, because, if you see significant changes in spending, in the next quarter, can we afford to hire this person, or can we, do we need to make other changes within the budget? So it's really trying to give you more information about what's going on within departments and their spending levels and their projections, rather than coming to you at the end of the fiscal year saying we don't have any money in our checking account.
That's something new since that was last year. So things have changed a little bit, which is good. A couple of questions, and I'm going to be hard on you. I'm going to tell you right up front.
Yes, sir.
The cost to go into the academies and et cetera, and then people dropping out. I know there's a lot of legal action trying to get that money back, but how much is that cost in the county when you send somebody there?
Well, fortunately, Governor Whitmer has set aside money to pay for the police academy. So this last group we sent, the entire cost was covered by this grant. We applied for it and received the grant to send all of them to the police academy. But it can cost, we had one case where he was a DB plan, the only DB plan that I recall out of all of them. His cost was $50,000, and we've won every single court case as up to this date. We were supposed to start a trial this morning. It was put off for 45 days on another person. A jury trial, I was looking forward to that because I believe that contractually we win that case. And every motion, every single thing that has gone through the courts, we have won. And it goes from, like I say, from your question, from 50,000, some are 20, some are 29. It just depends on what plan they're in, if they have health costs.
Well, I applaud
and
you
their
for going
wages.
after those, but.
Just to add to that, so they're covering the cost of the person going to the training and then up to $4,000 of their paid time while they're gone.
Correct.
So the difference between what they cost and that $4,000 would be the cost of the county. So there still is a cost, but at least they're covering, because we haven't had that before, yeah. So we haven't had that before where they would cover the cost of the training and 4,000 of that, so that's healthy.
This is off the topic a little bit, but how much did the state budget give you in the grant?
Is it 36,000?
I believe so.
I think it was
Okay,
36,000.
so
Just
that'll
not
go,
off the top of my head.
yeah, so that'll go very fast. But the next question I have is I've been here for a number of years, and it's been my experience in the past, and that was before your time here. And in the past, this overtime with the county jail, I remember it before your time here as the undersheriff, it was approaching $2 million a year. And every year it kept going up and up and up. And I know I worked with the past boards that I've sat on here to try to get that under control. And it just, I know I'm going out on a limb here, but it just appears to me at times that being that is the big thing that is by statutory duty of the sheriff's department to provide is for that jail, but not everything that is being done by the sheriff's department is statutory. So they receive, more funds than what is statutorily necessary. But things kind of got shifted that way to get the money. And that's passed. Now, I don't know if that's what's going on here, but that's been my history of watching the spending. And I would prefer, rather than taking this, being we're so early into the budget year, I would prefer not to be taking it out of our fund balance yet, but make it a line transfer within your department, trying to get the sheriff's department to stay within their budget that they were given at the beginning of the year. So as this is written, I'm going to vote no for that reason. But I am willing to reconsider it if, I don't know what my other members are going to do, because I've not spoken to anybody about this. But if it passes, it passes. But if it doesn't, I don't have any problem bringing it back as a line item transfer within your department. Is there any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who voted yes? I only heard two.
Dale and Ellen.
I abstain. Can I abstain?
No.
No, I can't. Okay.
Unless you have a good reason, but which
Well,
conflict.
I wanted to meet with the CFO this afternoon, but I guess I'll vote aye.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a question of procedure, if Commissioner Brown decides to change her vote, she can vote differently at the full commission meeting.
That is correct.
Yeah, so this is to move it out of committee.
Okay.
Right, it's just move it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I gotta put my glasses back on. Okay, treasurer, forwarding to receive and file a copy of the first quarter investment report for a period ending December 31st, 2022. Treasurer, moved it, support, I'll support it. Could you explain, please, just for people that don't know?
Yeah, I'm Carla, the Chief Deputy Treasurer. By our investment policy and part of the statute, we are required to present a quarterly report to the Board of Commissioners. This is the quarterly investment report for the first quarter of the fiscal year, so it would end December 31st. We have a contract with a company called Meter Investment, and they actually are our advisor. We just recently switched over to them, and we are working through getting our investment of county money kind of in line with what we feel our needs are to be able to keep it out invested and earn money for the county. On our investment. We have really moved money around a lot after we've started with them. So we should start seeing some investment interest come in that should more than offset the cost of this company. So.
Is there any questions or comments?
So the motion is to receive this report and place it on file?
Yes.
That's all it is, yeah.
Okay.
Seeing no other, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, thank you. I don't know of any other business.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes,
say one thing?
you sure can.
I've been thinking a lot about county finances, in particular related to the healthcare issue and the retirees, and that's obviously just in our first month been probably the biggest issue among several big issues, but probably the biggest and the one that's caused a lot of consternation. Clearly relates to finances. I'm wondering if there would be a way that we could have some sort of a working session or a retreat or whatever you want to call it of the full commission, knowing that we may have to have it in public for Open Meetings Act purposes, to drill down on that so that the newer commissioners, including myself, can have a much better grasp on all of the ins and outs of especially retiree health care, but also how that's related to the long-term financial sustainability of the county.
I think the answer to that is yes, we could do that. We've done that before, and I'll let Mr. Freeman wave his wand and make that happen. He's good at organizing those types of things.
Consider it done.
Well, that was
It's gonna be done.
There's the easy button.
Well, you didn't have, I knew the answer to it, but
I appreciate it.
Is there any other comments by any of the other commissioners? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. And thank you for staff for being patient.
Want to go right into government ops, Josh?
Yes, the chair. We got it.
We are,
Ready to go.
Let's call this government operations meeting to order at 9:45.
Commissioner Avery,
I want to know.
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Kuzinoff,
Here.
Commissioner Ellenberg.
Here.
Thank you. I need approval of the minutes.
move the minutes.
I guess I'll.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion to support, roll call. Or all in favor, let's just call.
All in favor? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment for the board?
Hello, my name is Monica Shapiro. I'm president of a group in Grand Blanc Township called the Friends of the Grand Blanc Grid, which is about road accessibility and equity. And I understand that one thing you may be talking about today is appointing someone to the road commission vacancy that exists. I just wanted to say that multimodal transportation is an equity issue. The US is an exceptionally dangerous place to be a pedestrian, and low-income people of color are far more likely to be killed by motor vehicles than white citizens of other income brackets. One surefire way of reversing this trend is to improve pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. As a nurse, I always look at policy from a public health perspective, and road policy, my personal passion, is no exception. Rates of obesity, chronic disease, isolation, blah, 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 other mental health diagnoses have been shown to decline in communities that make transportation choice a priority. In order to create a shift in Genesee County, we need to make two key changes in road policy. One is to change the Road Commission mission statement, which currently states our mission is to collectively provide and maintain a safe, cost-efficient, and quality county road system for motorists in Genesee County. Roads in the 21st century are not just for motorists, they are also for pedestrians, cyclists, mass transit unit users, and people with disabilities. Access and equity are not luxury add-ons for overwhelmed and underfunded townships to finance and maintain, particularly when residential communities are asked to host primary corridors that cut through multiple communities and see upwards of 17,000 daily users. The second thing I'd like to see happen is lift ban on contiguous bike lanes. See, Washtenaw, Oakland County, this is done in enlightened counties everywhere. Somehow the world doesn't end and the public health and safety benefits, including to motorists, are major. My time is up, but I am applying to be considered for the road commission appointment because I have very strong ideas and opinions about how to do this, how to make a slight shift.
Why don't you stay for Public Works and then you can finish which one to say.
Okay,
that would work
great.
for you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Anyone else for public comment? Public comment is closed. Communications, nothing. Under communications, old business, nothing under old business, new business. Probate court, approval of a modification to a contract between Genesee County and Genesee County Health System through September 30th, 2023. This contract is for the service provided to the Genesee County Mental Health Court Probate Division. Do I have a motion?
Support.
And I have a motion and support. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? B, Sheriff, approval of purchase order 2. Is it Josham Paper Packing for the fiscal year ending 2023 in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for cleaning and paper products. The cost of the purchase order will be paid from account 1010-3510-252, bunch of zeros, for $22,000. The next account, I'm not going to read it all, is for $3,000. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Do I have a second?
Support.
Support. Any discussion? Okay. If there's none, I do have a question, real quick. As always, did we send this out for bid?
I have to refer that to
I'm,
Eric, sir.
you know,
I apologize.
Mike, you're
Good morning. I'm Derek Jones, the purchasing administrator for Genesee County. So we did a packet for janitorial supplies. We did receive actual responses back. But what we're finding is that it's kind of like a hit and miss as it relates to the items that were on the actual bid. So we have gotten additional items from the Sheriff's Department along with other departments, and it's our intent to send it out again. Some of the larger companies did not bid, and we're trying to see if we can get them to bid on some of these items so that we can have more of a one-stop shopping versus these multiple different places that people have to go for supplies.
well, if I'm going to continue. So not used to asking someone else if I can speak. So holy cow!
I'll answer.
Wow.
You can ask me if you want.
Well, you know, it might make me feel better. It's been 4 years. So my concern would be with just having one is when they call and they need something, and let's just use toilet paper for an example. Then that if we just stick with one, they might not have it. So then they go to call, the sheriff's department goes to call, or the county goes to call, and guess what? We're stuck with one vendor, and they don't have any toilet paper, you know, because people panicked again because balloons fall out of the sky or whatever we want to go with here. Do we have an option? Do we have a second agreement with someone or a separate purchase order set up so we could go with a different company if that took place, or do we have to go through this whole process again?
So the intent is, in doing this solicitation, is to have those options. It may not necessarily be where we may have a contract, say for instance, for $100,000 with one major company. However, we may have like a smaller one with another company, like just in case that the larger company cannot provide those particular services. It's been somewhat of a difficult process because again, we're trying to attract some of the larger companies who can probably provide a majority of these items with the, as you basically said, having these other companies maybe can provide like the toilet tissue, some of the other ones will be trash bags and some of the other items as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any comments? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And with that, we have any other business?
No, sir.
Okay, we will adjourn at 9:52.
9:52.
Yep.
We have until 10 o'clock.
You know if one free is still here, Josh?
I believe so. He was when I passed him in the hall.
Thank you. I have a doctor's.
You wanna hit your microphone down there? We're ready, it's 10 o'clock.
All right, I'm going to call the Human Services Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Winfrey?
Here.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Present.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Shoemaker?
He's here.
Commissioner Ellenberg?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
Properly moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Are there any public comments to this committee? Any public comments? Mr. Seward.
Bill Seaver, Flint Township. What I'm about to talk to you about pertains in no way to our sheriff's departments and their paramedics. They aren't the problem. If anything, they are the solution. I am concerned about some of the private ambulance companies, specifically response time and level of training and service. And this isn't unique to Genesee County, but I think as citizens, regardless of where you live in Genesee County, even if it's in the most remote area, you're more apt to need an ambulance than you are police or fire, especially as our community ages. But I don't think it's beyond anyone's expectation that when you call 911, that you are gonna have an ambulance come in a reasonable response time. And secondly, when that ambulance arrives, that the people on board have enough level of training that they know how to do an assessment of a patient. They need to know what to do. And I'm hearing horror stories from police officers, fire chiefs, and even our township supervisor who sits on the 911 consortium. This is an ongoing issue. I spoke to you about this on February 11th last year. I looked at my notes, and it continues to remain an issue. I don't have the answers, but if you want me to sit on a committee, and Commissioner Ellenberg, you did invite me to a meeting. Unfortunately, that one 911 meeting that I attended, they didn't do anything.
No.
So we need to come up with some solutions to make sure this is a matter of life and death. We shouldn't be territorial about an ambulance service. If you don't have an ambulance available, then let's go to the next available ambulance and let's worry, just like fire departments, they all work together. Let's get the ambulance companies to work together. Let's dispatch the next company to go to that scene and treat the patient and save the life. If I can help you in any way, please, and I'm a former EMT, I've got a background on this stuff, let me know, I'll help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments to this committee? Any further comments? Any further comments? Comments are closed. Any communications?
No, sir.
No old business. New business, item A, G card, request authorization to terminate programming and funding associated with Michigan Department of Health and Human Services contracts E202-32333-00 been properly moved and supported. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all.
So what is the purpose, why is the termination being requested?
G card?
Please.
This is a state-funded home visiting
What's your
program.
name? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm Kelly Webb, I'm the Head Start Program Director.
Hi, Kelly.
And then I'm also responsible for this funding, it's a state-funded program. It's Early Head Start model, it services 40 children. We are asking to terminate the contract with them because we are unable to staff the program. We have had one position posted for well over a year with no interest. It actually has 4 home visitors, 3 of them transitioned to openings within the traditional Early Head Start program funding. And so unable to being able to fill the positions doesn't make a lot of sense. We were able to transition all of those families as well as the home visitors that were interested to our Early Head Start. So there was no termination of services to families. It was a smooth transition. They kept their same home visitors. We've been very transparent with the state because it isn't our intention ever to give away money that comes into the county for services for young children. But not being able to staff them, it's irresponsible of us to keep taking the money and then not being able to spend it.
Any further?
I have a question. With the suggestion that's going on with the governor, for earlier, how will that affect your program?
Pamela and I were able to sit in with Governor Whitmer yesterday for a roundtable discussion. And I did bring up my concerns then. While I think that universal preschool is a wonderful thing, I have a lot of serious concerns, especially in our county, with licensable space that's safe for children, as well as the lack of teachers. ABC 12 in December said there were 66% decline in people in the state of Michigan going into the teaching profession, and early childhood, I'm sure, is impacted even more significantly because teachers don't make money, they don't necessarily get the respect, and it's not always safe, but early childhood is even worse.
So basically, we may not benefit?
I'm hoping that it provides some equity for the children, as far as preschool programming is concerned, but we don't know how the funding will go. We don't know if it'll be pre-K-12 instead of K-12. We don't know if they'll funnel it through GSRP, which GSRP, throwing acronyms out there, that's the Great Start Readiness Program that's state funded for your preschool. We also get that funding, so if it goes that route, that may help us. But we can't keep increasing funding when we don't have staff to provide programming. It's kind of false hope.
Yep.
It's like telling people your child's going to get preschool, but we don't have teachers to teach the preschool. And it's a statewide, it's actually a nationwide issue, but it's really hugely impacting the state of Michigan.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Sean? I'm sorry, Commissioner Shoemaker.
That's all right. Listen, I'd rather go by that. One, thank you for the update, and I totally agree with you. Guess what? It's pie in the sky, and it is false hope when you tell people things you can't do. But that's what politicians generally do.
Just vote forgiveness. That's what I compare it to.
Well, people don't remember come election time, do they? My question is there any penalty though because we haven't been doing this? When we cancel this, is there a financial penalty or is there money we have to give back? Or
we actually will terminate funding. So what we have not spent, basically it's reimbursement basis. We just won't get the funding that we haven't spent. And that's why we've been very transparent with them so that they know that that's kind of in the works, so that if we ever do get the staff, hopefully we can stay in a good light with the state so that we can get funding again. And they understand we're not the first. Olshaw did it a couple years ago. People are declining this funding because it has far more, it's based on the early Head Start model, but it has a lot more reports and it's very more extensive. So people don't want to do this home visiting program if they can go to another home visiting program and just do the early Head Start model without all the other extra efforts.
All right, thank you.
Anything further?
One final question. How many families does this impact?
We're funded for 40 children, but the way that we operate our programming is always 40 families. So it doesn't make sense for us to go in and just say, well, I'm only going to serve one child if they have 3 that it's age appropriate for. So, but all of the children were able to be transitioned to our early Head Start, which we also have issues with. You'll see on 2 and 3, I might as well just stay up here.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 2, request authorization to submit an enrollment reduction request for the 2022-2023 Head Start been properly moved and supported. Any discussion?
Might as well go with the enrollment reduction. So is that kind of the same thing?
Yes, this 2 and 3 both on the agenda are really in reference to us being understaffed. The federal government implemented the COVID vaccine mandate, and for Head Start, that was never lifted. We still have to have vaccinated staff. In fact, nobody can come into our classrooms that are not vaccinated. So it's been very difficult for us to attract and retain staff. That paired with the fact that we underpay people, that's why we're trying to do an enrollment reduction. The Head Start re-implemented the full enrollment initiative, which basically means if you want to keep all of your funding, you have to be fully enrolled or you'll be put in an enrollment plan and they will reduce your funding moving forward if you can't comply. Because we are in a competitive county, there's other Head Start programming, there's USRP programming, there's this new initiative that's going to play out. We really feel like it's very important for us to make our teacher salaries, because our teachers are teachers. Of our 18 classrooms, 12 of those are GSRP blended funding, so those teachers are bachelor degree teachers. So we, our top pay was $21.07. So, I mean, when you look at that compared to, wage comparability with other programs, it's weak. So we looked at, I actually pulled all the collective bargaining agreements for all of the districts in the county and looked at all the positions compared to our positions, as well as the Michigan Head Start Association wage comparability study, and we are proposing to increase our teachers to, they're on a stepped tiered scale, so their top will be $24 instead of $21. And our coordinators will be starting out a little bit higher than that. It's really across the board with the exception of administration. I am not proposing an increase for my pay or the associate program specialist, but we really need to be able to attract and retain the staff that we have. We've lost 45 staff since, I think it was since 1920, since 2019. No, actually 2020 year, we lost 45 staff members. Those are just teaching staff members. We lost over 80 if you look at office staff as well as managing classroom assistants. So we're struggling to stay afloat, and we don't want to lose funding. This is also something that the Office of Head Start is well aware of. They've put all the guidance out for programs to do enrollment reductions for this very reason. They know this is a problem, and so they're really working with programs to make this happen. So that's what we will do a proposal. They'll do what they call negotiations, which is really them telling us what we're going to do, and then we'll move from there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just for our newer commissioners here, so that they understand the relationship, you don't work for the county, right? You're a contractor.
Correct.
Through.
Open Livingston Human Service Agency.
Right. Do we do an annual contract, or maybe this is for Stephanie, do we do an annual contract with you, or is it a multi-year contract?
It's a 5-year, isn't it a 5-year in conjunction with our grant cycle? So I think the last time it was 7 years or something, and then we took to align with our grant cycle.
Okay.
Keep going like that.
And you talked about wage issues, and I know that they've amended contracts before. Are the wages set by OLSHA? Are they set by the county through our contract? Are they set by the state?
So OLSHA, they have their own Head Start program. Mm-hmm. And their staff are not on the same pay scale as us. They have their own programming. Ours.
But you are OLSHA.
Correct. Okay. But they have their own independent programs. We're OLSHA for Genesee County.
Okay.
They have OLSHA for Oakland Livingston. So their wages are not, they're not the same as ours. We have our own personnel policies. We have our own salary and wage chart. Everything is run through them and their attorneys, as well as our parent policy council for approval, but it's not, they're independent.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I was just gonna say, this is like both saddening and sickening at the same time.
Very much so.
I mean, it really hurts, to even consider giving back. But I understand why we were doing this responsible, and kudos to you all for being, proactive in this and being responsible. But the reason why I say that is because we know that there's a need out there, and there may be a lot of families who may not even know that services are available. So there's no drought in terms of need. But this issue, which is a universal issue, as you said, in terms of wage equity, and because obviously teachers are, we know, severely underpaid, grossly underpaid. Administrators are grossly underpaid, and so hopefully in the scheme of statewide discussions and national discussions, you said you were at a round table, there could be some consideration when it comes to these grants about raising the administrative portions of this funding, if you will, so that we can pay teachers and years more. So I don't want to go on and on about it, but it, it's pretty sad. Sad way to start the morning. Not your fault.
Believe me, if it wasn't too late to change my major, I might rethink it.
Yeah.
It's a sad day for Head Start, it really is.
Yeah.
So, but we want to keep the funding so that we can continue the comprehensive services for the families that we can.
Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Shoemaker.
You had mentioned you're having trouble getting staffing and the fact that the mandates, are the mandates still there?
Mhm.
Are they planning,
much so.
are they planning on lifting them?
Well, we were told in August that we would have guidance before school started. And the mask mandate was just lifted, which we were told that it was a mandate, but they weren't monitoring on it. So for the longest time, we still had our children and staff masking until they finally made it very clear that they were not looking at that. But the vaccine mandate is they're still not monitoring on it per se, but they very much expect you to be in compliance with that. It has not been lifted. It's neither a permanent rule, nor have they lifted that.
And when you say they, the state, you mean?
The Office of Head Start from the federal level, even contractors. So if someone comes in to fix our furnace and they're doing work for us on our behalf, we have to ask for their vaccine status. We can't have parents volunteer in our classrooms. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
So Kelly, what would be the implications of amending the contract to increase the salaries?
Well, that would be the enrollment reduction. So in order for us to increase staff salaries, we would be serving fewer children. And we really tried to maximize that by increasing our home base numbers. Right now we have 10 classrooms that are not open because we don't have staff. So, I mean, in essence, we're proposing to do kind of what we're already doing. But being able, this year we will not spend all of our funding. And there's no way we can justify spending all of our funding if you're not providing services to families. You can't say, but we used all the money. So we want to be able to use all that money to pay our staff so that we don't keep losing them to other initiatives, so that we can continue to serve the families that we are serving.
Where are we posting some of these open positions?
Well, we go to every career and resource fair that we hear about. We also have partnerships with all of the local colleges. And so we speak to them. We send everything home through our parents. We kind of have the grow your own philosophy. Over 40% of our staff are past parents. So they might start as a lunch classroom assistant. We are able to enroll them. We've run CDA cohorts, which gives them credentials to be a teacher assistant or a primary caregiver in an early Head Start classroom. And we've paid for those. So we've had a lot of people go through the cohorts, and then they can work. We work with Teach to get them scholarships to do their testing, as well as then to work their associates, bachelors on up. We have education reimbursement. So we're really trying at every level that we know. We're advertising everywhere. We're trying everything we can. Whenever we hear a new idea, we're like, let's do that. We have a Facebook page now. We send things home through the school districts. Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Item number 3, request authorization to submit an enrollment and properly moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Any other business before this committee? Hearing none, this committee is adjourned.
10:18.
Are we good?
Turn your microphone on.
All right, good morning again. I'm gonna call the Public Works Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Present.
Commissioner Ellenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner Kuzma.
Here.
All right, thank you. The approval of the minutes from the previous meeting are before us. What is your pleasure?
Move the minutes.
Support.
All right, been moved and supported. Any discussion regarding the same? All right, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying nay. All right, motion passes. The minutes from the previous meeting have been approved. Are there any public comments for this setting?
I'll come up again.
All right.
All right, I see that later in this meeting, you will be discussing the appointment to the road commission, and that is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in volunteering for that position.
Will you state your name?
Monica Shapiro, I'm president of the Friends of the Grand Blanc Grid in Grand Blanc. But I have said before that multimodal transportation is an equity issue. I want to also say that my 4 children and most of my friends' adult children have no desire to live in Genesee County despite our affordable housing, great schools, and the fact that their aged parents live here. Literally all of them cite active transportation as one amenity they seek when choosing to live elsewhere. Transportation choice is a proven economic driver, bringing restaurants, shopping, increased property values to communities that promote it. The 2 changes I'd like to see made in road commission policy are to change the mission statement to say that the road system is not just for motorists, they are also for pedestrians, cyclists, mass transit unit users, and people with disabilities. I say access and equity are not luxury add-ons for overwhelmed and underfunded townships to finance and maintain, which is the current road commission thrust. I say lift the ban on contiguous bike lanes. It's been done in counties all across Michigan, and the world doesn't end, and public health safety benefits, including to motorists, are major. So I am saying the road commission will soon have somewhat more funding. Let's think holistically as we design our road projects. I think that the county has to break a barrier in their thinking. And I understand that it's a slow shift, but I also understand ways to make this shift without breaking the bank, and I can answer questions about those kinds of things if you'd like to ask me. So,
Thank you.
time is up.
Thank you for coming to share. Are there any other public comments for this committee? Any other public comments? Any other public comments? All right, public comment period is now closed. Any communications before this committee?
No, sir.
Any old business? All right, seeing none. New business. Before us we have under Parks and Recreation approval of an agreement between Genesee County and Midway Tree Services LLC. The amount not to exceed $44,500 to provide trail and tree and stump clearing.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported to move this to the full board. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none. Do you have anything, Commissioner Ellenberg?
If you could, I mean, just so that we can get on the record.
Yep. So a little bit about background on this project. So this is phase 1 of the Iron Bell Trail section through Atlas Township from the village of Atlas to Mancourt Drive. The Iron Bell Trail, if you don't know what it is, it's a state designated trail from Belle Isle in Detroit all the way to Ironwood in the UP. We are fortunate in Genesee County to have that path running through. So with the Iron Bell Trail, a lot of it is connecting pieces to make it happen. And this is just one of those pieces that we're looking at. So what this is for is this is just to get the tree removal done. We have a short window of time because of federally protected bats on when we can get these trees down and then get working on phase 1 of the project.
And this went out to bid?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and so like as you move along, do you keep the same or do you kind of use maybe a tree company that's local to the area that you're working at?
So it will get bid back out, for phase 2 for any, tree removal that's
Okay.
done.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any additional questions? Thank you for sharing, appreciate it. All right, seeing no further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed indicate by saying nay. Motion passes. This item is moved to the full board. All right, under other business, we have Genesee County Road Commission discussion. This is a continuation of discussion we had amongst the full board at our last meeting regarding concerns raised with regard to the Genesee County Road Commission. Not to regurgitate the entire discussion of that particular meeting. The reason why I'd asked for this to come to this committee is for us to determine and decide how we would like to move forward with doing an inquiry, which is different than an investigation. An inquiry into some of the concerns raised and concerns that have not been raised, the varying perspectives there. What I'd like to do is, if I had to support this body to do so, is to appoint a subcommittee of myself and a subcommittee to this committee of myself and Commissioner Sean Shoemaker to receive written and verbal perspective. I don't want to seek testimony because this is not an investigation. We don't have any authority outside of just receiving information. Appointing a subcommittee whereby we're able to receive perspective from those that care to share. We could develop either a list of those that will come to share or allow for in some organized way for folks to reach out to the office to maybe submit their name to be considered, to be spoken to. And I'd say to submit their name to be considered, because if we get 100 people, I would not be in. I have to be for specific. I'm coming back into being in the public role, so I had to be very careful. So I'm making the adjustment. We want to receive names of those that want to share, whereby myself and Commissioner Shoemaker can go through, pull out some names of varying perspectives, and bring them in if they choose to volunteer to do so, or to receive a written statement for them. Have a representative from the prosecutor's office to sit in to take notes. Then at the conclusion of receiving the perspective from the individuals that come to share, to have the prosecutor's office to put together a synopsis of the information received to be submitted to the board. At that point, based on whatever that perspective is, we could either send it over to the Road Commission, or we could just make a request to the Road Commission to consider the perspective that's presented. One of the things that I'm careful to do is to dive too deep into investigating the perspectives, because it's not our jurisdiction. We don't have the authority to bring folks in, put them under oath, to subpoena individuals, and so on and so forth. So careful to make sure that this doesn't become something that none of us intended to be. We don't want it to turn into some circus of sort, or some uncontrolled query. But just to simply receive statements and perspective for those that want to share, so that we have a breadth of the varying perspectives. So that's my suggestion, that's my recommendation, that's how I like to proceed if there are no concerns. Commissioner Ellen.
So would that be an open meeting, or would that be basically a committee of, like the subcommittee of you and Sean, with the people that basically asked to speak in front of you?
Sure.
And is there a reason why that we're bringing in a prosecutor, or would you'd rather have the legal here other than to have Josh take minutes or do a recording?
Yes.
It's the prosecutor's office, civil division.
Okay.
Obviously, if it's the criminal division, people are going to be less likely to want to speak. But it's the civil division, and that would be for
like a mediator.
Well, as Commissioner Lloyd pointed out, the assigned corporation counsel would be a note taker of the statements given by the witnesses. And then that would aid in our ability to present and produce the synopsis of what the witnesses say, so the full Board of Commissioners can review it, and it would be subject to the attorney-client work product.
Okay, would that interfere with any lawsuits that's happening now through there?
That's part, if I may interject, when Commissioner Lloyd and I spoke, that is one of our concerns why we wanted corporate counsel. They're not specifically, the prosecutor's office is not what we want there. We want corporation counsel there to stop us, to guide us kind of through this process so we don't get ourselves in a lawsuit by something we do. In addition to that, put a clearer picture together and understand what we find.
Just so I understand, in my discussions with Commissioner Lloyd, nobody's going to be under oath in that's why I believe he wants to call it an inquiry versus an investigation. It's a voluntary matter. Folks may not come. Folks may come, those who want to participate. But the inquiry would be voluntary, not under oath. So while those statements might be used down a road by a cagey lawyer to impeach, I don't think they can get those statements because I think they'll be subject to the attorney-client work product exception that we will create we're your lawyers. We're going to be here as part of that process. That's our thinking. And just further, my understanding also is that the inquiry is not to interfere in the operations of the road commission. It's to assist you in selecting the next road commissioner so that you have a better perspective, if you will, on who should that person be based on what you learn from these voluntary statements. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and just to add on to that is one of the other things that I felt to mention is in this particular setting, I do not believe it would be appropriate based on pending litigation, being careful to be responsible and protective of the county as well from getting us in the situation. This is not a setting where there's back and forth between myself and Commissioner Shoemaker, where folks are presenting perspective and then we're giving our opinion about it, or we're saying, oh no, that shouldn't happen, or those kinds of things, but just simply to hear whatever the information is presented. Okay, thank you for coming to share your perspective, because again, the purpose of this is not to exhaust our individual perspective. It's to hear the varied perspectives at the commission so that we have it, and then each commissioner can make their own determination or perspective on their own about what they believe is happening or not happening, and then make whatever our best decisions are. Josh Freeman.
You hear what he said? So just a little background. Previous board went through a process like this. Before it was Commissioner Winfrey, Commissioner Nolden, and Commissioner at the time Clemens. They did invite Donna Poplar, Anthony Branch, Tim Elkins, who's the chair of the Road Commission, and Fred Pavandi. Two of those parties came and talked. The other two brought attorneys and didn't say anything at all because of those ongoing lawsuit matters before them. So I think just to kind of give you some perspective from what happened before and related to your question. That's how it went before.
You had mentioned in a prior meeting we had with the appointment committee that the state has already had findings that they've concluded.
I believe that there were several EEOC complaints filed and that the state has dismissed those, yes.
Is there a way we could
I think I might have that information because it was requested last time.
And that could be a part of what we submit to the board at the end as a part of that, because that will be a part of inquiry as well. What lawsuits are out there? Do we know the nature of them? Obviously, we may not be able to get the details of it and so on and so forth. But are there any complaints that's been filed with the EEOC? What is that information? Whatever's out there, we'll pull it together and then give it to the board. To Josh Freeman's point about folks not participating or coming with an attorney and not speaking, this is voluntary. So, there are a few names that I'd like to ask to participate. We can't compel them, we can't make them, we can't subpoena those kinds of things. Because I would like to hear from the director of the road commission. I would like to hear from a member or two of the board of the road commission. And then if there's some employees that want to, but they can say, no, I don't want to participate. And that won't be reflected poorly other than these are names of folks that the subcommittee requested, hey, they didn't participate or whatever. And so anyway, I don't want to go on and on, but are there any other questions or thoughts or concerns? Again, doing it this way, I think it keeps this from becoming something that I don't think any of us have an appetite for, which is, I want to just say it, a circus. We don't need this to become some spectacle because that's not the point of doing an inquiry. We're just gathering information that's available or not available, and then allowing the board to have access.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to have this, we've been going through this since September.
Sure.
It shouldn't be this long. I talked to Prosecutor Layton, and this isn't the first situation with Road Commission. This is a continuing thing that's been going on for years.
20 that I know about.
Pardon?
20 that I know about.
Yeah, for 20 years. David said as long as he's been here.
20 years.
It's like if you let the circus go on, it continues to go. And so we have to expedite this. We have to get these people in place so that our road commission can run functionally. Plus, I'd like to thank Mr. Shapiro for coming in. I know that you have a background. You've come before, and I have seen your application brought in. So anyway, thank you for participating. So, just if you have a timeline on this, we need to do this as soon as possible.
So in terms of timeline, hopefully within the next 30 days or so, I'll work with Josh Freeman in terms of the details and how we reach out to folks and so on and so forth. In terms of concerns continue to be raised, that is certainly a possibility. That's the history as folks have communicated it. What this allows us to do in terms of closing of my comments is, again, members of the commission who do not have the history that you all have in terms of addressing it as concerns have been raised, it gives us an opportunity to do what we believe our due diligence is, at least to get to the bottom of it in real time during this particular commission, and then to be able to, be able to move forward.
And as the chair of the board, I gave the courtesy basically because I've always done that. If there's a commissioner that needs more information, that I've always granted them to get more information. And I've always been in favor of that, but not to drag things on. At that meeting, when you're sitting in the hot seat up there, sometimes things just kind of swing by you and you don't even think. But I know that yourself and Dr. Beverly, Commissioner Brown, have both decided who you were going to vote on. So it wasn't the fact that you hadn't went through because you already knew who you were going to vote. But you wanted to know more information on what's going on there, and I understand that, and that's why we're sitting here to go further into this. Because hopefully we can come down with an agreement and somewhere they can get along. You have to work together. You don't have to, but as my parents always said, you don't have to invite them to dinner, but you should always be courteous and you work together to because you are a team and things get better.
Sure.
So,
Sure. I just want to.
And that's my goal.
Commissioner Lloyd, can I just interject that the inquiry would be a fact-finding inquiry, and there would be no deliberation whatsoever between Commissioners Lloyd and Commissioner Shoemaker during the fact-finding inquiry. That would be later at an open board meeting, full board, after the summaries of what the witnesses have said has been distributed.
Okay.
And just one clarification, if I may, just follow up to you, Commissioner Ellenberg. Just to be clear, as stated in the meeting the other night, if the board had decided to move forward with making a selection based on perspective available to me at that time, or preference, review of resumes and such, then there is a person that I would have supported, just as majority of the board, I believe, I assume may have had an idea of who they would have supported or would have made a selection. But one of the other things I did state that night is that one of the reasons why I wanted to go this route to gain additional information, and I said it with even that particular candidate sitting there, that they may not be my choice candidate. There may be someone else that I think it's more fitting for me to support based on that. And so I just want to be clear, I'm not married to a candidate, but a desire to secure information so that I can be more comfortable with this selection, because it's a very important decision. Commissioner Shoemaker.
I just have one more thing, and I'll leave it there. When we say fact finding, it kind of makes me leery, because these are just people coming and sharing their view of what happened. And under the investigation with Mr. Gleason, I mean, I had spoken to several employees about this, and that's how we kind of got that going. And then all of a sudden we go to sit down and actually start saying things, doing things, stories come out a little different. I sat in there that night and heard some horrible things about Mr. Geringer, and you and I have discussed this, and guess what? No one has ever produced a single fact or whatever, but they're allowed to spew their opinion. So when I hear fact and we're asking just for their side of what they think's going on, I'm very leery to say, when we put that report out there, that guess what? This is their view of it, or you use the word perspective of it. Unfortunately, perspective is one thing, it still doesn't bring truth, and that's my problem with the current world we live in. Just because that's your perspective, that is not truth. Truth is truth, it never will be changed, it never will be any different, but unfortunately we've allowed people to skew the fact of what is truth. So I just want to make clear when we start this is, like to you, what you said, we are getting their view, their opinion, their perspective of the way they're seeing the world. But as far as fact, because it's not an investigation, we have no way of going in and proving that what they said is true. Just like, when people, like said horrible things about Mr. Geringer, they said, and I said, show me. I'll be glad to listen, I'll be glad to do it, but no one can prove that. So at that point, it's just vicious rumors to destroy one man's reputation or another person's reputation. I don't want that happening. I'll be very clear. I've worked with Fred. He has made my job 10 times easier on the road commission, and I've never seen him, when in my conversations with him, anything negative like that. So I'm always shocked when I hear people say these things, but I'm ready to move forward. I'm with Ellen. I think we need to move in an expedient manner, because there's several people over there that have been on the board over there long enough. They've served their time, and we need to get new blood in there to get the county moving forward. So,
and one more, and that's basically through you to Mr. Shoemaker on this special committee. If we can do all three positions at the same time, because we have the 2-year seat, and then we have 2 6-year term seats. So if we can do both of those, all three of them together, on that committee, they'll pick out the ones that they'll set up a few, and then you're still able to vote whoever you want to off the application, but there'll be a recommendation.
No, so I appreciate all of the perspective. I'm careful to link appointment process with, in terms of how many candidates we take, whether we do them all today or tomorrow or next week, with the inquiry, because they're two separate pieces. One is, the gathering of information, which then ultimately, based on us agreeing to go that direction, which then takes us back to that appointment process, which is a separate consideration. For me, I'm not in a position as one person to decide what that looks like or to provide, because I'm not sure. I haven't even thought about it.
I'm not saying it'd have to be on the same day.
Sure.
I'm just like, if you guys bring in your facts, and that will be discussed, and then after that, we'll bring, just so that we can do all three appointments at another date after the fact finding, after you figure, do this program, this section.
Understood.
Okay.
Any other perspective, any other discussion?
I just want to know what groups of people do you plan on talking to?
So initially, as I mentioned to Commissioner Shoemaker, right off the top of the head, the director of the road commission and a couple members of the board. Beyond that, I don't have a defined list of people that I would like to talk to. However we decide to, and I'll work with Josh Freeman, I'm sorry, Ten. We serve together.
Just call him Mr. 10.
So, but he's made clear to me, hey, I'm not a member of the commission, I work for the commission, so you made that clear to me 100 times. So, but anyway, outside of those, and maybe there's some other folks that, that are right at the helm of the commission, that somebody may say, hey, we definitely wanna extend an invitation to them. Outside of them, I don't have anybody else in my mind that I would extend an invitation to. I'm sure we're gonna have a number of folks reach out and say, hey, we wanna apply.
I probably have a bunch of letters that.
Yeah, yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. I don't have
doesn't,
anybody.
but that's fine.
So your question was, do we have anybody in mind? And the response
What groups of people? Who do you plan on talking to?
I don't have any groups outside of that.
Director.
Yeah, other than, because I haven't talked, so like, our chairperson says, hey, you need to talk to the director, knowing that we're gonna go down the road.
Well, that's an obvious one.
Yeah, knowing that we're going down the road of an inquiry, you know, I'm not interested in talking to anybody beyond, us deciding to go this route. In terms of folks, to answer your question, groups or individuals right off the top that I'd like to send an invitation to. Definitely want to talk to the director, definitely want to talk to a couple members, of the board. Outside of
Which
that.
ones?
So my understanding is that there are, and we'd be transparent because you asked a question and I'm very transparent. My understanding is that there may or may not be two factions of that board. And to get a perspective from you know, somebody on both sides of that, I think that is meaningful. Those are official representatives of the road commission. And that's why I'm interested in their perspective. So that's three, potentially, or the commission may just say, hey, you know, there's one. Outside of that, I'm interested to see the folks. I'm sure there's gonna be some names that pop up that's gonna say, hey,
Well, I'd just like to know, that's all.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was a transparent question.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Oh,
There's 5 of them.
So let me get a list of all of the folks that's on the board. One of those individuals, let me get a list of the board so I can tell you what those names are. And
Tim, what's the woman's name from Grand Blanc?
Kathy
Lane,
Yeah.
Dave Arcio, Cloyce Dickerson,
Yeah.
and John Mandelaris.
Yeah, so we can talk about it here and we can determine that. Who are
I don't
you all
care, I'm
aware-
just asking you, I'm trying to stay out of this.
So let me
Because
ask-
I've just heard so many lies.
Yeah.
And a lot of them directed towards me.
Okay.
So I'm out of this. I know who the liars are.
Okay.
And so I'm staying out of this. You go ahead and do your fact finding or whatever.
Sure.
You know, you have that right to do that, and I'm glad you're doing it before you make a decision.
I mean, we've been dealing
you know,
with
I'm
this
not the person to be involved with this, but as a county commissioner, I have the right to know what the heck's going on.
Sure, understood. So what we can do is, once we determine what that list of people we actually send the invitation to, then we can make sure that that's communicated to the board in advance.
Okay.
Even of us making it open to other folks that want to participate. How about that?
That'd be fine.
Okay. Commissioner Shipping.
Thank you, and sorry to prolong this, but I'm not a fan of inviting 3 board members that we're about to remove.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just not a fan of that. I don't think the conversation will be directed as and where we want to go, but and get to what we're trying to get to, which is the truth. I would like to see it, and this is me, obviously the director. I would also like to, if it was me, I'd like to call, get the opportunity to our garage managers, so you have upper management, and then I'd like to also give the opportunity to the employees also, especially anyone newer, to see what their feel is when they've come in, and then I'd call it pretty much, you know, that's where I'd stop, because any of these people on, you know, the board there, 3 of them are gonna be gone. The 2 newer ones, I think have done a decent job over there. I've heard they've been engaged, they've been involved, they've shown up to meetings, you know, but we went through a process where we actually, thanks to Commissioner Kuzno, who put it in place, we actually did a review, we made sure they wanted the job. We didn't just appoint them because guess what, I got campaign funds donated to my campaign. You know, that's not how it works. So, but I don't even wanna interview them, because there is 2 factions over there fighting, and all you're gonna get is, guess what? Just like here, you're gonna, on something we would disagree on, you're gonna call Ellen in and she's gonna see it her way and I'm gonna see it my way, and guess what? That's the war and the line you're gonna draw down the middle. What we need to do is understand from our employees' standpoint, because that's what we've heard, is it's a bad environment for our employees. They're not there every day. Heaven forbid, hopefully they're not micromanaging and standing over them every day. We need to find out, in my opinion, from the director and maybe somebody else in the management over there if you wanted to, and then I would take your garage managers and I would try to maybe see if you can get any of the employees that would want to actually come in and share with us some information, or just write us something like you said, which I think would be great. And then we could expedite this, but I'm not a fan, and if you want to do it, we'll do it, because like I said, I'm not going to be a stopgap to moving forward, but I don't think, 3 people that you are removing, and you might reappoint 2 of them, but guess what, that would be a no, hard no for me. I just don't think it's the best thing to ask them to, any of them, all 5, even the 2 that are staying, to bear witness of what they believe is going on. Because if they are part of the culture that is the problem over there, you're asking them to basically say what they're saying. I'm concerned with our employees, just like here I've always been. Guess what? When we had the Genesee complaint, I was concerned for our staff and our employees. And that's what we need to be focused on, is guess what? How do we make it a better environment for all of our employees from there? So that would be my recommendation.
So one thing that we could do is, because what I don't want to do is skew, nobody suggested that, but I'm just making, my thought. What I don't want to do is skew the discussion one way or another based on the perspective received. And so maybe based on what you share, maybe we don't send a request to board, the director. I definitely want to hear from the director, but maybe we don't send a request to board members, but allow them to reach out through however we make that available. And if somebody wants to share, they can be a part of that too, and then we can figure out what we want to do with that. To be clear again, I'm approaching it not one-sided, but to give both factions an opportunity to come and have the same opportunity to present whatever their perspective is, to have both sides of the issue, or factions, if you will, to have whatever their statements are recorded by a third party, if you will, and to have them put together a report of what the perspective received was, so that the board can have it to decide whatever they want to do. Whether they want to appoint this one or that one, take all 3 at one time, take one at a time, do one a day, do one next year. That's where I want to get to. So if that makes it where, hey, we're not picking and choosing 1 or 2 of the board, that's fine with me. I don't have any.
Like I said, for me, like I said, if you want to do it, I'm with all of them, fine. But like I said, and I have a little more time down here, and I also spent 6 years in Fenton Township dealing with the road commission. And I can just tell you from my years at Fenton Township, the road commission, since we have a new road commissioner, my townships are happier, transparency is up. When you have an engineering bid, and these are things because, when you're in the city, you had your own DPW, you understand, we rely on, like, if I want to have a subdivision resurfaced, I've got to call out, and guess what, call for the engineers from the road commission. Guess what? Before Fred was there, our bids were out of control for the road commission. Now I'm having supervisors tell me the engineering costs are half, and they're reasonable, and they're flexible. So, and if he's on a witch hunt for cultural bias or whatever else, like, that's fine, but the people we put in there have done a good job because they've dealt with the road commission before, they understand it. So they're gonna have a completely different perspective than these people that didn't, or were moving out. And I just don't know how you get somebody who's, even when you've lost an election here, you've done something else here, you're gonna have a different taste in your mouth towards what went down. And, like I said, if you want to take their statements or whatever else like that, everybody, sadly, I believe, and this is truthful, even I'm guilty of it myself, has made their opinion about what they want to see on that road commission or what's going to happen. We're going through this to, my goal is, if we were really going to go through this, is to dig actually really deep. If we really were interested in finding something, the rest to me, this is just a dog and pony BS show. Because if we really were interested, and if there was racism over there, then you know what we'd do? We would spend the money, because there's no cost too great for it, because guess what? If somebody is really that person that's that evil and that awful, in my opinion, and I know it sounds strange coming from as conservative as I am, then they need to be gone at all costs. And that's why I was willing to fund John Gleason's investigation, because guess what? I'm sorry. I'd heard things and it broke my heart. Now, we're not doing that. So for the rest of this, to me, is all just theater to show people we looked. We did.
Mr. Shoemaker, may I break in just for a second?
I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna make a couple of comments and then I'm gonna leave and let you two do it, because I've already said more than what I intended to on this topic. But I would highly recommend that, like Sean, I've dealt with this this will be my 9th year. 4 years as a township trustee, 4 years as a prior county commissioner, and now this. So I have quite a bit of knowledge back behind there. But I would highly recommend that in your inquiry, what I was leading up to earlier is talk to the township, the customers. Talk to the township supervisors. The road managers or the, what do you call it?
Garage managers.
Yeah, the garage managers. Talk to them. I mean, if you really want to do it right, talk to them and talk to all of them. And I can give you recommendations, but I'm not. So I want to step out before I say more than what I want to say.
All right, thanks a lot. So we have everybody's perspective. I think we discussed it. I think that's how we move forward. Any other discussion on it?
No, and we can always continue on, because we have the subcommittee, so
Sure.
from there we can
Sure.
always continue on.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, just one last thing. Prosecutor, is Ashley gonna be helping us with this, or who should we be?
It'll likely be Ashley.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, so, okay,
You're
I just wanna
good.
make sure, I just wanna make sure so I know who we should communicate with and where we're going, so, thank you.
All right, any other discussion on this? All right, seeing nothing else before this committee, this meeting is adjourned.